we recording? Here we go. All right, it is Saturday. I am your friend, William, aka Insel Riot, aka Heroin Bob, back again at the Canal of Solitude with some deep thoughts. Some deep thoughts about China. I thought I'd talk about China today because I just got finished watching Tucker Carlson's interview with Professor Jiang, and I couldn't really pay attention to this stuff because like so many of the things that he said like got my brain going, right? And so you ever do this where you can't concentrate on what you're listening to or what you're reading because you have so many ideas of your own. So like 30 minutes go by and you realize you haven't heard anything that he said. You have to rewind, and then you do it again, then it happens again, and then it happens a fifth time, and you're like, I just have to go record a video, and maybe then I can pay attention. But I don't know. I guess I come across as like a defender of China sometimes, which is kind of unfair. It's just, I don't know. People spout a lot of nonsense on the internet, and 9 out of 10 times I just ignore it. But 1 out of those 10 times I just go off and like, how, this is completely wrong, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, I get called names, and it's cost me several friendships. But I don't know. I have some criticisms, actually. There's no elegant way to say this. I think China's in a lot of trouble, actually. And maybe not for the reasons that people think. Professor Jiang, his analysis is very materialistic, right? And he's a professor of Western literature, which is perfect, right? We'll get into that. But yeah, it's all about geography and economics and production and geopolitics, and none of that's wrong, but it's very, like I say, very deterministic, very billiard balls kind of thinking, which is kind of endemic to Chinese thought these days, and which ultimately will be my point. But I don't know. This is going to sound pretentious, but I'm going to go ahead. So to explain why I think what I think, I'm going to have to introduce some of you to German historiography. Right? I am very German in my philosophy. This is a school of thought that really died after the Second World War. It was defeated, not just the German nation, but German thought. And German thought, like post-French Revolution, has been extremely anti-rationalist. Okay. And not all the German thinkers are German. Like probably the greatest one is Joseph de Maistre, who was a Savoyard, a Frenchie. And if you can, gosh, I'm going to do the whole thing? I suppose I have to. And they have, so the paradigm that we kind of live under now, the single unitary, is very deterministic and very rationalist, which is to say, cause and effect. Like things happen because they are acted upon by outside forces, which is very scientific, right? And that the motivations of people are selfish and economic, right? The most material benefit for me and my people in my country, I want more money, I want more land, I want a hotter wife, right? Radio show going on behind me. Where was I? Got distracted. Right. So, yeah, and de Maistre is a direct counterpoint to Jean-Jacques Rousseau and like all these liberal guys, and he's very funny. And for example, well, the point he makes is that this is it. You can say it's scientific to say that people are motivated by material things, but on the other side, you can say, well, it's actually very anti-scientific because that does not conform with observation at all. Like that is observably not how people behave. Like you can say that, for example, like what Jiannggg says is like people are born free, but everywhere they are in chains, right? And de Maester comes back and says like that's like saying the sheep which are born carnivorous, nevertheless everywhere seen eating grass, right? So you can say that something is one way, but when you look around and say that people are behaving a completely other way, completely different way, like maybe like base your scientific conclusions upon observation. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah. Okay, so this eventually culminates in 1920 with Oswald Spengler, right? The historiography of Oswald Spengler, which I am an adherent of, I should tell you, and on which my analysis is based. Okay, where the rationalists will say man invented civilization, invented God, man invented God. He turns that around, he turns it on his head and says that that God, religion creates civilization, right? It's the opposite. And his thesis really at the core of it is that nations rise and fall, empires rise and fall, not for material reasons, although that does play a factor, but because they're animated by a big idea. Right. So if you're like a tribe wandering around, I don't know, Northern Europe, whatever, in the forest, and you're the size of your tribe is kind of like limited by the number of people that you know personally, and you will look out, because they're either your direct relatives, or you're married to them, or you've taken an oath to them, or whatever. Lots of reasons why you would be loyal to a group. But like these large civilizations, like Chinese civilization, or Indian civilization, or Islamic civilization, or Western Christian civilization, they come together because of a big idea, right? And people are part of it. They feel a part of it because there's always something to do, right? The ideas are very big, and people participate in the civilization by realizing these ideas, whether it's, for example, from like 500 to 1000 AD, like what is orthodoxy, right? What is the proper proper expression of Western Christianity? And you have you have this guy, you have Origen debating this, and you have Thomas Aquinas saying that, and you have St. Augustine saying this, right? Wait, Thomas Aquinas, he comes later. Forget that. So St. Augustine, right? And you have heresies over here, and you got to stomp down the heresy because this is wrong, and right. So people participate, right? And then later on, like that gets nailed down, and then the focus shifts and becomes, well, we need to realize this idea in the real world by building cathedrals, by making beautiful art, by making glorious kingdoms, and amazing men that exemplify these ideas, right? And so on and so forth. And then the part comes. I'm basically laying out like Spengler's 4-part cycle, which he gets from Goethe. And he divides into spring, summer, fall, and winter, right? And he says that every civilization lasts about 1,200 years, and or 1,600 years, I should say, and they just kind of, and they go through these phases, right? Where you just figure out what is this idea. Let's figure out what this idea is. Okay, now we figured out this idea. Let's actualize this idea in the world. Okay, and you get that to a point, like say in 1500, and it's like, okay, this is too built up. right? And then kind of under his theory, it kind of reverses itself, right? And you get like a transvaluation of values where everything becomes opposite. Everything turns into opposite day. And we go against all the values of the civilization and maybe emphasize parts of the civilization that were ignored before. I'm not doing a very good job of explaining this, but the idea is that it is the participation of everybody within the civilization trying to actualize the ideas of the civilization that makes the civilization. And that when there is nothing left to do, right? Not when they're defeated physically or militarily, but when they run out of things to do, then despair and ennui takes hold, and things kind of come apart. Wilder, if you've seen Apocalypto, like the quote from Will Durant, like at the very beginning of Apocalypto, is I'm trying to paraphrase. No civilization is conquered from without until it has destroyed itself from within. That's true, right? And if you're being scientific about it, and observing how things actually happen, well, it's not materialism that animates people. It isn't even like, saving your own life that animates people. It has always been ideas, right? Like take the Punic Wars, right? With Rome, like Rome lost and lost and lost and lost and lost. In both of them, they've lost hundreds of thousands of people, like had several fleets destroyed. Why didn't they give up? Why didn't they lose? Objectively, they lost, right? Like by the current rules, we killed more of your guys than you killed of our guys, therefore we win. But they won because they never give up. And Spengler says, and I think observably true, that rising civilizations are almost never conquered. There are exceptions to that, which are interesting, but maybe beyond the scope of this. Like overwhelming force can cut down civilizations, like as they are rising or at their peak. It seems to me this has happened twice. Like Islamic civilization basically got cut in two by the Mongols in the sack of Baghdad in like 15, I don't remember exactly when. And also possibly the case of Japan, which was a rising civilization. I believe, in the early 20th century, and got nuked twice. Otherwise they would not have given up. Overwhelming force can crush that, and it causes weird things to happen if the cycle is not allowed to play out the way it's supposed to. Okay, so that's that. So where does that leave China? We're going to talk about China now. China's cycle, China's extremely old, like really old. Like they brag about it, like they say that they're 5,000 years old, and it's not really 5,000 years old. Don't tell a Chinese person that, because you get punched in the mouth, maybe. Really about 3,000 years old, and they are well past, like their cycle ended 600 or 700 years ago, right? So the ideas of it's funny. It's funny. Oswald Spengler gets this wrong, I think, because people say that well, what about China can you identify as like a great religion? And they always point to either Taoism or Confucianism, which is like completely wrong, because they come in the middle, right? Confucianism is a restoration, as per Confucius himself, right? He's trying to restore the old ways. So that's something that falls like toward the middle or even the end of a civilization. And Taoism is a release valve of sorts on Chinese culture. More kind of akin to like Chinese atheism. Really, it is very atheist. It's if you pick up a translation of the Tao Te Ching in any English translation, it'll be it'll be geared toward like hippies and stuff, and they'll like work in words like cosmos and mysticism and secrets and like into the text that are not in the original. Like the Tao Te Ching is like just a very rational, it's a rational deconstruction of Confucianism, really, which is, you know, when Confucius is not his ideas. He's restoring the ideas of the ancients, right? And so like they're the autumn of their civilization, the one where they're very materialistic and very secular. That's around the Tang Dynasty, which is like 800 to 1200. I hope I might be giving those dates a little bit wrong. I'm bad with numbers. I'm good at history, but I'm bad with numbers. Right, and then they get occupied by the Yuan, and then the Ming Restoration is kind of their winter, right? Where they throw out the invaders and bring back, right, what Spengler would call the springtime forms of their civilization and their religion. And then it collapses into corruption after 400 years, and then they get occupied again. Here's my analysis, I guess you could say. China is in a little bit of a weird cycle, wherein all the impetus for their identity, for their growth, and by extension their nationhood comes from outside. Right, basically it comes from us, not to find a point on it, right? The current government and the current social order of China is as a result of, and this is, if you talk to like Chinese people at the university, this is almost like a sacred thing, like the 100 years of humiliation, right? How did it's a huge country, how were the British and the Westerners able to overcome such a large country so easily? It's because they're corrupt as all hell, man. They're collapsing internally, and they'll complain like, oh, the the British, or the small-hatted forced opium onto us, which rotted our society from the inside out. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. Your society was rotten from the inside out already. They provided the opium, like, there was no sales campaign to drive opium use. And then opium is just as available now as, well, maybe not. There's still drugs, but people aren't rushing to go kill themselves on drugs right now because they are not in a state of despair. Where was I going with this? Right. So. Right, there's a weird, after the end of the Ming, they get completely conquered by the Qing Empire, who are foreigners from Manchuria. That coupled with, and then the Westerners show up and just like basically kick their butts all over the place. And it's really amazing how corrupt the late Qing was. Like you could draw some like serious parallels to like our countries today, where I don't know, like it wasn't all conquest. Like these Western powers are like playing off each other, really. So like some of them are trying to gank you and take your stuff, but others are like honestly trying to help, like seriously trying to help. Like if you go to the Summer Palace in China, there's an interesting artifact that you need to see. It is this marble boat, a tea house, a floating, it's not actually floating, it's because it's made out of stone, tea house. And the story behind that is that the British government offered Cixi, right, the Empress Dowager of the Qing Dynasty, offers her like a loan, like, we want to help you modernize, they said. We're going to give you this loan to build a navy. You can guess what happened. And rather than, they embezzled all that money. Instead of building the navy, they built this boat. Like, and if you go look at it, it's like, you could have built a navy. It's crap. It's absolute crap. I don't know, people who don't know the story might look at it and like say, wow, what an amazing cultural artifact. But if you know the story behind it, like, what a piece of crap, It's not very well done. It's very crude. It's not that big. Anyway, so right. So you get two factions within China at the end of the 19th and early 20th century. You know about them. They are the nationalists, right? Chiang Kai-shek, and the socialists. And it seems on paper like if you put that under the paradigm of like of what it would mean in the West, right? These should be, you know, bitter enemies, right? In China, not so much, because, and this may this is like a trust me bro movement, because I don't know, should I explain it? I should. It's important, so I'm going to say it. China is not ideological the way we are. Ideology is something that is specific to us. It goes back to Isaac Newton, right? And the establishment of the standard and the Enlightenment generally, which is the establishment of the standard that all truth should behave as it were math, right? That's basically what ideology is. Ideology, that word doesn't even translate. You know, you can try it. Plug it into plug ideological thought into Google Translate, and it will. Well, last time I checked, it was 思想, which is just thinking. Right? There's no word for ideology or that paradigm. So the Chinese were never ideologically nationalist, nor were they, or are they, ideologically communist. They were interested in both of these things because they believed that number one, that adopting Western methods would make them stronger, faster. And at the time, you know, you're thinking this is like 1920 and 1930, when the capitalist world is in a Great Depression and the Soviet Union seems to be doing really well. Like, people didn't know about the killings. There were rumors, but most people didn't know. It seems like the fastest way to get what they want would be the communist way, which promised modernization within a generation, right? My point is that the impetus of the current Chinese paradigm is comes from the West, and the goal is to achieve parity with the West, so that material parity with the West. Because as they see it, it wasn't, and this goes for like most nations in the formerly third world, it isn't Western ideas necessarily that, I know I'm contradicting myself a bit, but I'm not actually, the reason for their defeat was not the ideas necessarily, but it was the material superiority, right? Superior weapons, superior economy, like mechanization, infrastructure. And if a Western ideology, or pretending to understand or pretending to implement a Western ideology, is what gets you to that point, then you should do that, right? Even if you don't understand it. You know, you can imagine like a kit with no instructions, right? Imagine this from the point of view of the Chinese, where they, we gotta be like these guys. I do not understand these guys. Our culture is radically different from them. Their thought is radically different. Our thought is radically different from them. There's no way I'm going to understand like the meaning behind these things, but I can buy them and just like implement them as they do, just like copy them basically. The Chinese mania for copying. There's no better way to explain it. Like at a very basic level, they really don't understand. They just don't. They just don't understand. They don't understand the reason, but they can understand the methodology. And they just implement the methodology, and and it might be germane to mention that they absolutely hate this. They absolutely hate it. Western, you and I, Western civilization, we like change very much. It's very much part of our nature to seek and embrace change. Right? And so we'll just keep changing stuff just because, because we're bored. Um, the Chinese are like, man, you changed it again? God damn it. So, like they will resist change for as long as possible. But then, a head will build up and they say, well, we have to adapt to change because we'll be left behind. And if we're left behind, then we will be conquered again. It will happen again. Right? The thing that we want to happen will happen again. Even if we don't understand any of this, right? Okay, this in my line of work, right? I use the most updated version of Adobe Illustrator for no particular reason, because I feel compelled. All the factories, right, to do the printing, they're on Adobe Illustrator CS6, which works fine. It's absolutely fine. Maybe better, actually, because it's very lightweight, and they're always coming into conflict, not conflict, but it's always an issue where I'll send them files over, like, and I'll be like, a decade ahead of them, like in the version, like, can you bring this back to, because they're standardized on CS6. And not just that, just, across the board. Did you know that, like if you're a web developer, right? We have moved past, scripting web pages with HTML, like hand-coded HTML. We have, like these platforms like Joomla, what are the new ones? Like WordPress and stuff like that. Almost unheard of in China. Everything, if you wonder why Chinese websites look the way they do, they're hand-coded by HTML because that is what they learned. And that's what they still teach at university. So very resistant to change. Why did I get off on this subject? My point is that it doesn't come from in here. It comes from outside, okay? It comes from us, right? They feel like they are under threat. And that is a large part of what drives their, I guess you could say, nationalism, right? It's what drives their, the paradigm under which China is operating now. What is that paradigm? I gave a couple examples, but it is radical materialism, okay? Not materialism the way you and I understand it, which is kind of like an intellectual materialism, right? Which does culminate in Marxism in the West. Like, I don't know, you could say like Star Trek, right? Like that's a manifestation of Western materialism. Like the big vehicles and like, right, and everybody's equal, and we've abolished money because it's inefficient, right? This is a manifestation of like of Western materialism. In China, it's very different. Like there's no hope. There's very little that's hopeful or idealistic about Chinese materialism. It's very grim. The word is weiwuzui. Weiwuzui is materialism, and it stands up. Well, how is that defined? It stands opposite. You will learn this in university if you go to university again against 思想主义. 思想主义 has no parallel in. There's no word. It gets translated most often as mentalism, right? Which includes religion, but is not limited to religion. It's anything sentimental, anything that is not physical infrastructure, right? So a Star Trek style, glorious future where you imagine yourself like colonizing planets. No. There's none of that. And it is just like very grim. It is infrastructure. It is math. It is science. It is drones. It is robots, and nothing else, right? And well, me being an artist of sorts, like most of my friends and colleagues over here are also artists, by the way. Most of whom are unemployed now, right? Most of them have changed jobs. I have a couple holdouts, like who are just as old as me, or who are just these curmudgeons. Like they're very, yeah. They're not optimistic people. the current society does not favor, which doesn't say they don't do it, it does not favor art or literature or music, or these things exist. Incidentally, most of the music, there's no music industry in China to speak of, believe it or not. Almost all the music comes from Taiwan and Hong Kong, which are completely different paradigms, which we won't cover today. There is an attempt at like an art movement, but it, gosh, it just, I know I'm going off track a little bit, but like there's no career path for a designer or an artist in China at all, right? Because this is not part of the kit that they received from the West, right? Like the ideas that we say are important, and the way it seems from the outside, like the reason for our prosperity has nothing to do with, you know, our art or our music or anything like that. So they just don't do it. It just doesn't. I think. Well, recently there's been a realization, right, on the part of the CCP that they're losing the hearts and minds of the people because, you know, Chinese, because they don't promote. Like I said, there's no career path for an artist in China at all. And incidentally, that's why most of the directors like come from Hong Kong and Taiwan or other places. Not all, but a lot of them. And the ones who are good, you know, they seem to flee, like Jiannggg, right? I'm getting way off track. Where was I going? Something about art. Right. It's just yeah. Oh, right. They realize that they're kind of losing the hearts and minds of like the Chinese people's like Western media, which is true, right? Western media is more favored, not just Western, but anything foreign. Korean things are very popular. American things are still very popular, despite us being political enemies, right? They're just, well, it's just better, you know. So realizing this, they've tried to up their game with making better movies, and they are making better movies, but it's still very much under the auspices of the CCP. So there's not a whole lot. I mean, you look at the posters and like you watch some of this stuff, and it really seems like they're all written by the same guy, even though the quality is improving. There's like I don't know. It's not super interesting. Right, so radical materialism. Oh, and this radical materialism is very extremely anti-tradition, extremely anti-Chinese tradition, right? To the point that there's literally no value in life other than money. Right, so the goal of everybody, almost everybody, except for like a few artists that I know, is you got to make money, you got to have a house. You got to have a house, you got to have a car, or you can't get married. Why can't you get married? Because all the college-educated, the materialist women have been taught this is the only purpose in life. The only purpose in life is to have a big house, is to have a car, right? Is to go to a good college. And then eventually, I guess, to go on vacation. The result of which is that increasingly, like, the birth rate has crashed. I believe this probably won't come out in any numbers, but I think it's probably lower than Korea. It's just the absolute pits. And because people can't get married, and because the economy is kind of crap, people just maybe read about this. Right, the tamping, the laying flat, and the bailan, the letting it rot. Lay flat and let it rot. Screw this system, right? It's got nothing for me. I'm just gonna retire to Dali. There was a movie. Okay, Dali is in the Southwest, and it's one of the extremely poor parts. It's also very nice though. It's extremely nice down there. You can a Beijinger can work a couple a couple of years in like an office job in Beijing, move to Dali where it's very poor, and like retire. And so there's like a small movement of college graduates who have retired to Dali, and they like live in these communal apartments. I talked to my friend, like we should set up like an artist commune down in Dali and just see how many people we can get. I think I get into a lot of trouble for that. Like, you know, accelerate, like this foreigner accelerating like what would be seen as elements of Chinese social decline. So there's that, and also the divorce rate. The divorce rate is it is at least as bad as the West, right? Because yeah, that's the only value. Like especially if you're a guy, like the only value in life, make money, and then make money, get stuff, and then get a hotter girl and get a hot wife. And when your hot wife isn't hot anymore, you get a hotter wife, because that's the. So hello. Little girl just walked in front of me. Yeah. And it's really kind of disintegrating. This radical materialism, this Weiwuzhui, is really dissolving them from the inside. So here's my prediction. Here's what I think is going to happen. Here are the forces that I believe are in play, and then I'll wrap this up. Number one, China's eventually going to get to a point where they believe, whether it's true or not, they are satisfied in their hearts that they have overtaken or at least matched the material prosperity of the West. Okay? And when that happens, the reason, their purpose as a nation, as it has been for the past 150 years, maybe longer, is going to evaporate. And weird things are going to start to happen, right? Because the CCP, like it's what's the word? Its legitimacy is based on continuous material progress. If they can't deliver on that, what purpose do you serve exactly? Okay, and this can only result in a correction. Okay, well, correction to what? Here's the problem. Well, here's another problem. They don't know. Like, they're so out of touch with their culture. You would not believe. Oh yeah, I mentioned like Professor Jiang. He's like a professor of Western literature. I believe it. Like, they all study Western literature. Do they study Chinese literature? No. I don't study that hard. I know some stuff. Like, I read stuff. I am constantly amazed at how much more I know about the Chinese classics than the average Chinese person does. They just know nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's part of this 思想主义. It's the past, right? So they really don't have any. Like, there's some TV shows, like Journey to the West, that keeps being remade, and what's the other one? The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, that keeps getting remade. So people are in touch with that, and they know a little bit of the Tao Te Ching, and they know a little bit of Confucius, not very much. They'll know the first line, and probably that's about it. The Great Learning, like attributed to Confucius, but probably not. Most people have never heard of, which is amazing. It's like a major Confucian classic, and most Chinese have never heard of it, right? So what tradition is there to go back to? I mean, the only actual, the only kind of sort of religious thing is the Falun Gong, and the Falun Gong is just like this. It's not any kind of traditional religion, no matter what they tell you. It's kind of like this mishmash of things. It's like a little bit of Buddhism and a little bit of Taoism, but they don't actually read the stuff and don't actually seem to know anything. The organizing principle of Falun Gong is that they're against the CCP, right? For what reason? You know, name a reason. So many reasons, right? That's the only unifying principle behind it. Like, there's some evangelicalism thrown in there. They keep, like, if you run into one, God help you. If you run into one, like, and you engage them, they're more willing to engage with foreigners in conversation than they would be with because it's technically illegal, right? That they don't oppress them as much as they used to, but it's technically illegal because they're an anti-party group. They'll just go off and like this apocalyptic, like the CCP or actual like reptilian stuff, and like the gods are going to call down like, you know, a flood that's going to destroy Shanghai, and just stuff, right? Just stuff. It's not a real religion. And well, okay, I guess I don't want to go into like Chinese religion, because that would be like we would be here all day, literally. But suffice to say that like a major component of it would be ancestor worship. What is called ancestor worship, but like the venerating of the ancestor. If you've seen Mulan, right? That must have been embarrassing or confusing for many Chinese people, because like the ancestors, like they actually represent ancestor worship in that thing, which is something that most Chinese have never heard of, right? Part of the radical materialism is that all that is your past. Your past is gone. Hear me now and believe me later. You can test this yourself. Find a Chinese person. Find like the most normal Chinese person that you can, and ask them the names of their great-grandparents, or even their grandparents, right? Grandparents they'll usually know because they interacted with them a little bit, but ask them the names of their great-grandparents. They have no idea. Where are they from? No idea, right? What it came out on the news recently that the CCP is just kind of going to erase all the minorities in China. I just say, well, you're all Chinese now, which is something you can do in China because they don't remember who they are anyway. They have no idea where they're from, and if you bring it up to them, you will get, well, what would you get? Hostility. This is nonsense. This is mentalism. I had a friend, this is many years ago, who lived in Jinnggg, which is in Shandong, which is where, not the place, but near to the place where Confucius was born, and his name is Kong. His surname is Kong, which is the surname of Confucius, Confucius, right? Confucius. And I asked, oh, that's so cool. Me, as a foreigner, like, wow, that's so cool. You're from this area, and your name is Kong. Are you related to Confucius? Absolute contempt for the very idea. What does he say to me? I don't care. I don't care. If I were, it wouldn't make me a single dollar. It would make me no money. That is the standard of valuation. Does it make you money? No. Well then, who cares, right? So, right, all these forces, like inside, like external forces. I'm sure Professor Jiang is right, like about like rare earths or whatever. I'm sure he's right about the rare earths. I'm sure he's right about like what China has to do to secure gas production. But what's going on in here? What's going on up here? Inside the culture, it's not good. The CCP at a sooner rather than later, I would say, they're going to be unable to guarantee the material prosperity that is the basis of their legitimacy, really. And you're going to see a radical shift to maybe some kind of like nativist religion will reemerge, but I can't imagine from where right now. Maybe I'll be surprised, right? You know, I did not see Catholic resurgence in America. That took me completely by surprise, but it happened, right? It's not impossible. It could happen. Or, and this is possibly more likely, in my opinion, they'll pick some foreign religion to reorient themselves around, to give, right? Because what do they need most of all? They need meaning in their lives, right? It is meaningless. It is meaningless to be Chinese. If you cannot be rich, then it is meaningless. And so what they need is meaning, right? And possibly it could be some branch of Christianity, right? And that realignment has to happen. It has to happen. The forces are there. The forces are converging. That has to happen, whether it's sooner or later, who can say, right? But yeah, to reiterate my point, as soon as they are satisfied that they have reached parity with the United States, like the threat is gone, because like the thing that animates them is the belief in a threat, the belief in external threat, the threat of us. As soon as they no longer believe this is a threat, that purpose will be gone. The purpose that animates them, the purpose that unifies them will be gone, and they'll have to find a new purpose. Where will they find this purpose? It's up in the air. Be on the lookout. Watch for the signs. Right? Anyway, that's all. Nice sunny day. I'm going to go home. Have fun. Bye.